on behalf of the Northeastern Hill University, Tura campus, and the PA Sangma Foundation, I welcome you to the 4th PA Sangma Memorial Lecture by Professor David Semle. The memorial lecture commemorates the birth anniversary of the legendary and iconic parliamentarian, Sri P.A. Sangma, a man of letters and versatile genius whose charismatic personality made him a much-loved Lok Sabha speaker. His political career, spanning over 4 decades, saw him tirelessly working for the upliftment of the minorities. As Cabinet Minister, Chief Minister, and Speaker of the Lok Sabha, he was a much-loved and popular leader of the masses and a statesman of repute at the national level. His many accolades include the Padma Vibhushan, which was given posthumously to commemorate his outstanding lifelong achievements. He was truly a beloved son of the soil who mesmerized the whole of India with his political acumen.
Now I invite Professor S.K. Srivastava, Vice Chancellor NEHU, to give a welcome address.
Namaskar, a very good afternoon to you all. Honorable Sri James Sangma ji, Honorable Minister of Food and Civil Supplies and Consumer Affairs, Law and Power. Honorable Srimati Agatha Sangma ji, Honorable Member of the Parliament, Lok Sabha. Respected Professor David Shimle, the former Chairman of the UPSC and the former Vice Chancellor of Rajiv Gandhi University. Most respected Srimati Suridni Sangma ji, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great day, great occasion for all of us. We are here to remember Sri P.A. Sangma ji, a dynamic, visionary, energetic leader from the state of Meghalaya who contributed greatly to the development of Meghalaya, the northeastern region, and also served very well in the Union Cabinet, having contributed greatly to the national development. Well, today, being the 1st September, as we all know, is the occasion for 4th PA Sangma Memorial Lecture. In the year 2017, NEHU decided, having been inspired by the thought and philosophy and action, his contributions to the society, to the Northeast region and to the country as a whole, to remember our great leader Sangma ji on this great occasion. And that's how, with the joint efforts of PA Sangma Foundation and NEHU, we have made this, this event has become possible. NEHU and PA Sangma Foundation will continue to commemorate this day every 1st September every year now on. And on this day, we remember the contributions of Sri P.A. Sangma ji, who lives very much in our heart. Every year we have had distinguished speakers, including a Nobel laureate speaking, giving their keynote addresses on this occasion. And today it's a matter of pleasure and privilege to have Professor David Shimle, one of the eminent academicians of the country, with us. Thank you, sir. And lastly, once again, I welcome you all and extend my best wishes to the people of Meghalaya, especially Tura region, those who are here. Despite the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic situation, our spirits have not dwindled. Our spirit is very high, and we are still remembering together our Sri P.A. Sangma ji. Once again, I thank you all for making it convenient to attend this great function. I wish all the very best to NEHU and P.A. Sangma Foundation. Mitela Khublai, Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
On the occasion of the 4th P.A. Sangma Memorial Lecture, floral tributes were offered by Madam Suradhini K. Sangma, Chairperson of the P.A. Sangma Foundation. They were also offered by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Madam Agatha K. Sangma, and by Dr. Patrick Marak. Floral tributes were offered by the Pro Vice Chancellor of Nehu, Tura Campus, Professor G. Singhaya. Likewise by the Deputy Commissioner, Shri Ram Singh. Floral tributes were offered by the Working President, Shri S.P. Sangma, and by Shri Danny C.H. Marak. Professor Famelin K. Marak of the Northeastern Hill University Tura campus also offered floral tributes.
Today, the 1st of September, is my late father, Mr. P.A. Sangma's birthday. And on this day, we often celebrate his life in different ways. Our party has functions. We have our P.A. Sangma Foundation has different programs. Just like that, even the Nehu Tura has been celebrating his life through a guest lecture that happens every year on his birthday. And this year we are very privileged on the 4th P.A. Sangma Memorial Lecture to have Professor David Semle to be giving his speech, his talk. And I'm really looking forward to it. I know that he will really do justice to this memorial lecture, because even in the past we've had wonderful speakers to contribute to this occasion. We have renowned people like Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, we have Mr. D.D. Lapang, and a dear friend of mine, Mr. P.D. Rai, who have spoken on this occasion. So I just want to thank Nehu for organizing this every year and putting in so much effort to make this a memorable event. And I would like to thank, especially on behalf of my family, Mr. David Samle, who is a very well-known academician. I would like to thank Professor for this wonderful contribution that he's going to be giving us today. Thank you very much.
Now I have a pleasure to invite one of the sons of late P.A. Sangma, Sri James Pangsang K. Sangma, who is an Honorable Cabinet Minister, Food, Civil Supplies and Consumer Affairs Department, Information and Public Relations Department, Law Department, Power Department and Taxation, Government of Meghalaya, to deliver a speech.
Dear friends, thank you so much for joining us for this program. And at the very outset, I would like to say that I'm so happy to be part of this P.A. Sangma Memorial Lecture, which is being organized by the Northeastern Hill University along with the P.A. Sangma Foundation. And I'm so happy that we are being able to organize this, especially this year, with the kind of challenges and the difficulties that all of us are facing. For one, I had felt that it would have been very difficult to organize this, but a very big thank you to the Northeastern Hill University and also the P.A. Sangma Foundation for having come up with this idea to organize this program and make it into a web content and share with all of you. So thank you so much once, at the beginning itself, to Nehu and to the P.A. Sangma Foundation. We've all heard the saying that the darkest night, it produces the brightest stars. And I think that that really holds true today because if you look at knowledge, knowledge is the brightest star that burns the brightest or shines the brightest in the contrasting darkness that surrounds it. And this is the light which will drive away fear that stems from ignorance. This is a light that we must all share with everybody generously. And this is something that my late father, Mr. P. A. Sangma, he firmly believed in. And today, I think this P. A. Sangma Memorial Lecture is one of the fittest ways to remember him, to honor him, and to honor his life and his core beliefs. Today, it's really nice to be here with all of you, to be part of this program. You know, we will have a very, very renowned person to share his knowledge and experience with us. And we've had many such memorial lectures where we've had intellectual luminaries who have come and shared their rich experience and knowledge with all of us. And today also, we have Professor David Seamley, who does not need any introduction. He is joining us for this memorial lecture. And I really want to thank him from the bottom of my heart because he has taken his time to really share his knowledge, his experiences in this memorial lecture. And I know that during this particular challenging times, it is very difficult for all of us. But despite the kind of difficulties that he may have been facing, he was so kind enough to come and accept the invitation to address and give the keynote address for this memorial lecture. So really, a big thank you from my side on behalf of the P.A. Sangma Foundation. Thank you so much, Professor David Seamley. I think that today this memorial lecture is such an important reminder of the life of late P.A. Sangma, who brought recognition, who brought so much pride to each and every one of us. And the fact that he came from such a humble background, he was born in this small, dusty village in a really far-flung area on the border of Bangladesh. It's such an inspiration for all of us that a person who came from such a humble background could achieve so much in his lifetime. And this really goes to show that hard work, sincerity, dedication, if you were to put in all these efforts, I think there are no limits whatsoever towards what one can achieve. This really inspires, I believe, not just me, not just my brother and my sisters, but countless others who have known him, countless others who have come across him and who have interacted with him. And this today is really so important that we all recall, we remember the kind of contributions through this memorial lecture. We are all reminded of his life, of the kind of work that he did, of the kind of love and the devotion and the dedication that he had towards the people of not just this state but the entire country. And I think that today this memorial lecture is very important, not just because of the kind of knowledge that we will all be gaining from what we will come to hear in Professor David Seamley's lecture, but also from the fact that remember Mr. P. A. Sangma and the life and the simplicity and the dedication that he lived with. So, dear friends, I want to really express my deepest gratitude to Professor David Seamley. It was so kind of you, Professor, for having agreed and accepted our invitation. And really a very big thank you to you. A very big thank you to Nehu, who is the brains and the force behind organizing this memorial lecture. Thank you so much to all the professors uh, to, um, to Professor Srivastava, to all the faculty members in NEHU, and also to the PA Sangma Foundation that has collaborated with NEHU for this program. Once again, uh, I really look forward to listening to what Professor David Simle is going to speak about, and I'm very sure that all of you who are listening in will go back enriched with the kind of knowledge that Professor David Simle will be sharing, because of the kind of huge experience that he has, the kind of different responsibilities that he has taken up in his life. I think that because of that richness in the kind of experiences and the knowledge that he has, all of us are going to gain a lot from this. And this is really what the P.A. Sangma Memorial Lecture really stands for, that all of us go back enriched with knowledge, enriched with that light, enriched with the light that will help us in dispel all the darkness that is around us, the darkness which comes from COVID that has affected all of us. And this darkness is there, it feels like it's enveloping all of us slowly and slowly. But this light of knowledge is, I believe, very, very strongly, it will help us in dispelling this darkness, and really look forward to it. Thank you once again. God bless each and every one of you. Jai Hind.
Today we are very fortunate and honored to have Professor David Reid Simle, a renowned academician, who will be delivering the fourth PA Sangma Memorial Talk. Sir, Professor David Simle is the former chairman, UPSC, Commission of India, and former Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University, Itanagar, in October 2011. Before joining Rajiv Gandhi University, Itanagar, as Vice Chancellor, Professor David Simle served NEHU from 1979 to 2012 as Head, Department of History, Controller of Examinations, and officiated as Registrar and Pro Vice Chancellor, NEHU. Even after retirement, Sir David Simle is still active in delivering lectures, mentoring scholars, and conducting research. Today also, he will be delivering lecture on political activity and the Hill State movement for Meghalaya. I invite Sir David Simle to give a talk.
It gives me great pleasure to deliver this fourth PA Sangma Memorial Lecture, instituted by the Northeastern Hill University, Tura campus, in collaboration with the PA Sangma Foundation. This is a befitting gesture in memory of PA Sangma, who among many of his achievements was instrumental in providing the idea and facility for a university campus at Tura. Former Chief Minister of Meghalaya and Central Minister and Lok Sabha Speaker, the late Purno A. Sangma, was deservedly conferred the Padma Vibhushan, India's second highest civilian honor, posthumously in 2017. In his career spanning many decades, he was a lecturer, a lawyer, and a journalist before he was called to state and national politics. Chief Minister of Meghalaya from 1988 to 1990, Sangma rose to become the country's Lok Sabha Speaker, serving from 1996 to 1998, when the country witnessed 3 coalition governments. He admirably conducted parliamentary proceedings using his infectious smile, coupled with his fine sense of humor, to diffuse tensions. His sagacity in conducting the proceedings of the 11th Lok Sabha is recorded in the annals of Parliament. Sangma died in New Delhi on 4th March 2017. Today, on his birth anniversary, we celebrate the life of this fine human being, leader and gentleman of a politician. I recall the expectations of many when Purno A. Sangma was appointed and took over as Chief Minister of Meghalaya in 1988. Though the tenure was but for 3 years, he left his mark as an able administrator and politician. His legacy in politics are his ideals and principles, the party he formed, that grew under his able mentorship and currently under the energetic his energetic son, Shri Conrad Sangma. I recall too one of many meetings held with him in New Delhi, where he presented me a copy of his book, P.A. Sangma, A Life in Politics, Selected Speeches and Lectures. It is wonderfully illustrated on the cover with 3 images of P.A. Sangma: the contemplative, the smiling, and the attentive. The book provides selection of several of the more important speeches he delivered in Parliament. I trust the book will be followed with a more detailed biography of the man. I was looking forward to addressing the audience at Tura. That not being so, I thank the P.A. Sangma family for making this arrangement to have the recording done at my home. I have decided to speak on the making of Meghalaya. The political maneuverings in its making were long and arduous, and yet accomplished with dignity, and the end achieved through constitutional means. It would be refreshing to recall the past, as Meghalaya will be observing its 50th foundation in January 2022. Political activity. Mention should be made of the freedom struggle and the role of our freedom fighters in the making of Meghalaya and its history. But we cannot go into that development too long. I will start with the 20th century, where Sonaram Sangma led a group of Garos, a very long agitation covering many years, in a claim for Bijni and Habraghat estates. The movement extended into demand the restoration of reserved forests and the abolition of forced labor. There was a long-drawn disturbance in December 2002. An inquiry was instituted in 2008, which submitted its report. Sonaram Sangma was unhappy with that settlement, and he continued the agitation for several years. This was followed by political activity in the Khasi and the Jayanti Hills, particularly in the Khasi Hills, where the Sames were looking for a recognition of their status as Indian rulers. Between 1921, 1928, and 29, as also in 1932, many of the Sames petitioned government for a recognition of their status. This was followed by the more hectic political activity in the Khasi Hills with the establishment of the Khasi National Darbar, 1923. In line with a discovery of the Calcutta High Court in 1884 that the Khasi chiefs were ruling chiefs. This was followed by the integration story of the Khasi chiefs and their states into the Indian Union. This was shortly before the independence of India and the requirements given by the government of India that the Khasi chiefs sign the instrument of accession, which they did in July 1947. This was followed then in December 1947 by the Khasi chiefs being called to Raj Bhavan to sign the instrument of accession. 20 chiefs signed, 5 chiefs signed in the following year. Whereas the Khasi chiefs had signed the instrument of accession, there was no merger, because the Khasi chiefs had informed that a constitutional body of all the Khasi states was required for an agreement and an understanding on the merger issue, for which a Darbar was inaugurated in April 1949. This was then followed with the integration of the Khasi states by constitutional means through the Constituent Assembly of India, through its discussions through 1946 into 1949. The Constituent Assembly framed the Constitution of India, in which it was eventually found that the Khasi states had a place. I will now move to the Hill State movement. The close of colonial rule and the ushering of freedom and self-governance brought in many more changes for the tribes and communities of what was to become Meghalaya. While the connection with Assam and its people has been long and profound, the tribal people in time asserted their right to govern themselves at higher levels of governance. Scarcely had the British left when Assam's representatives in the Constituent Assembly advanced assimilationist views. Strong protests were raised by them in the Constituent Assembly when the sixth schedule was taken up for discussion. "We want to assimilate the tribal people," said a member of the Constituent Assembly. "We were never given that opportunity so far," he went on to say. The Hill people did not want to be assimilated in this manner. It would not be long before the cordial relations between the Assamese and the Hill people would be tested. The genesis of a separate Hill state for the tribal communities in northeast India was a rally of students and youth in Shillong held in June 1952, led by Hoover Hinyota, agitating against the principle of nomination in the composition of the newly constituted district council. The issue subsequently broadened to include a memorandum submitted by the Khasi National Darbar by its president, Babu Wilson Reed, to Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru on 19th October. Among several issues, the memorandum brought to the notice of the Prime Minister their objection to a proposal of making Assamese the state language of Assam and the desire for unification of the hills in the region under one administration. This was the impetus for a meeting in Shillong in June 1954, convened by Captain Williamson A. Sangma, Chief Executive Member of the Garo Hills District Council. The CEMs of the district councils discussed things of mutual interest, but largely the formation of a separate hill state and the amendment to the sixth schedule. Prime Minister Nehru, who received the report of the meeting, was supportive for greater autonomy for the hill districts within Assam, and that they should be allowed to feel that they are looked after themselves. The Chief Minister of Assam, Bishnu Ram Medhi, believed the time was not opportune to think in terms of greater autonomy for the district council. Soon after this, Captain Sangma convened a meeting of the Assam Hill Tribal Leaders Conference in Tura in October 1954. Largely attended by persons again connected with the district councils, the Tura Conference resolved to submit a memorandum to the state's Reorganization Committee, demanding a hill state to be known as the Eastern Hills State, to comprise of 6 ADCs and the tribal areas of Nifa. It was also decided to form a Hill Tribal Union with an ad hoc committee with Captain Sangma as chairman and B.B. Lingdo as secretary. The committee included as members A.S. Khongpai, Babu Wilson Reed, J. Hagjer, B.M. Pugh, and B.M. Roy. The state's reorganization committee was not in favor of a hill state. Rather, it recommended that special attention be paid to the development of the Assam hill districts. A third meeting of the hill districts leaders was held in Aizawl, 26 to 28 October 1955. It is interesting that many of these meetings were held in different parts of the hill area of northeast India. The meeting expressed its concern at the state's reorganization committee's inability to appreciate the aspirations of the tribal people and reiterated its demand for bringing the hills of northeast India under one administration. It was here that the Eastern India Tribal Union was formally put in place at this meeting, and I'll be referring to this as the EITU. 1957 was a year of hectic political activity with elections in the Lok Sabha, and the EITU spearheading a movement for the creation of a new state. More than a response to the creation of the state of Nagaland, it was the decision of the Assam government to introduce a bill in its legislative assembly for Assamese as the official language of Assam. And this renewed the demand for a hill state. Chief Minister Chaliha first announced this intent in March 1960. A second announcement was made in June that year. The statement was not received with enthusiasm other than in the Brahmaputra Valley. It was not welcomed in the hill districts and in Kachar. Captain Sangma again called the hill leaders, irrespective of party affiliation, to meet in Shillong 6th, 7th July 1960, and this was to discuss the situation arising out of the impending legislation. The meeting was historic for the resolution to establish the All-Party Hill Leaders Conference, the APHLC. The meeting further expressed its strong opposition to the move to declare Assamese as the official language of the state and urged the government of Assam to consider dropping the proposed bill. The APHLC held its second conference in Shillong, 22nd, 23rd August 1960. A resolution was adopted that the hill people would have no alternative but to demand a separation from Assam should the controversial bill be passed. And the bill was passed. It was first introduced in the Assam Legislative Assembly, 10th October 1960. It was opposed by tribal members of the cabinet who resigned in protest. On 24th October, the APHLC staged a hartal with massive demonstrations in Shillong. That night, the Assam Legislative Assembly held a special session and adopted the language bill. This was very naturally followed by the APHLC's third meeting held on 16th to 18th November at Haflong. The meeting was chaired by Member of Parliament J.B. Hagjer, and it resolved that the passage of the bill was clear proof of the Assamese community to avail themselves of undue advantage to enhance their domination of the hill people. The meeting drafted a constitution for the proposed state and decided to send a delegation to meet the Prime Minister. Another 10 years. An APHLC delegation met the Prime Minister on 25th November 1960. The language issue was raised. An assurance was given to the party representatives that Assamese would not be imposed on the tribals. At a second meeting 2 days later, the delegation was informed that the only satisfactory solution to the matter was to provide the hill areas full autonomy. And for this, Jawaharlal Nehru suggested the implementation of a Scottish pattern plan. The Council of Action of the APHLC discussed the offer and found the Scottish plan impracticable, reiterating again its demand for a hill state. The Congress party supported the plan. It resulted in a split in the party. The 1962 election was fought on the issue of the Scottish plan as against the implementation of the hill state. With the election of a fairly large number of legislators to the Assembly, the APHLC pressed further its demand on the verdict of the elections. Its rigid demands, however, dampened the intentions of the Prime Minister in his meetings with Gigi Swell, their Member of Parliament. What next ensued was the appointment of the Pataskar Commission on the hill areas of Assam. Appointed in March 1965, the Commission failed to consider the assurance given by Pandit Nehru that the hill areas should be given greater autonomy. It proposed no basic change in the sixth schedule. Consequently, the APHLC rejected the recommendation of the Commission and announced its decision to resort to direct action with a boycott of the elections in 1967. The pace of developments for a hill state quickened with Indira Gandhi's assumption of the office of Prime Minister. She came to Shillong several times, and here we have recorded her coming on 27th December 1966. What followed was discussions between the Assam Chief Minister Chaliha and the APHLC in early January the following year. Nothing came much out of this meeting. But what did come was the announcement made in Parliament by the President, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, in his address in Parliament on 18th March 1967. In line with this assurance, government appointed Ashoka Mehta, a cabinet minister, to head a commission composed of representatives of political parties of Assam. The APHLC found the recommendation of the commission to give maximum autonomy to each tribal area on the ground that each area, being different from the other in many aspects of life, divisive. The party rejected the plan and called for a non-violent agitation on 10 September 1968. The state of Meghalaya. The first decisive step towards a hill state, came on 11th September 1968 with the announcement by the Centre of the Reorganization of Assam. It provided for an autonomous state for the Garo, Khasi, and Jainti hills, with an option for the Mikir Hills and the North Kachar Hills to join the state on the basis of a resolution adopted by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the district council. The announcement provided for a legislative assembly and a council of ministers, with provision for taxation under a number of subjects assigned to the state, a high court, a public service commission, and other common facilities. The question was then asked by many in the state, and particularly the leaders, what should be the name of the state? And for this, our leaders had to go back to a PhD submitted in the University of Paris in the 1930s. The thesis was written by the geographer S.P. Chatterjee, who conducted a study in these hills in the 1920s. He called these hills Meghalaya, and it is after, interestingly, that PhD dissertation that we are all Meghalayans and the state is Meghalaya. Meghalaya was made an autonomous state in an experiment that has not been replicated in the country after a relatively long and peaceful movement and campaigning for a hill state. The Assam Reorganization Bill was introduced in Parliament on 15 December 1969 and passed by both Houses of Parliament on Christmas Eve, 24th December 1969. The state was inaugurated by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi at the Garrison Grounds, Shillong, on 2nd April 1970. The first ministry included Captain Williamson Sangma as Chief Minister and Stanley Nichols Roy, Edwin Barre, Stanford Marak, and B.B. Lingdo as ministers. However, difficulties arose in the working of the autonomy in functioning of the new state with regard to the quantum of legislative powers and the functioning of the judiciary, appointments, and police. K.C. Pant, the Union Minister of State for Home, when on a visit to Shillong on 14th September 1970, was requested by the APHLC to make Meghalaya a full-fledged state. The party went further at its 22nd session on 19 September to request the Government of India to declare the autonomous state as a full state. It was appropriate that this issue be discussed in the Legislative Assembly. By a unanimous vote taken on 30th September 1970, the Meghalaya Legislative Assembly passed a resolution urging the Government of India to bring in place a full-fledged state of Meghalaya. This was followed by meetings on 2nd October and 20th October 1970 of the Meghalaya Cabinet with the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. She was extremely considerate to the call of the Hill people, and she informed Parliament on 10th November 1970 that Government of India had decided to accept in principle the request of the Hill State. The Hill State was created through the Northeastern Areas Reorganization Act 1971, enacted by Parliament on 30th December 1971, provided in its comprehensive legislation for the establishment of the state of Manipur and Tripura and formation of the state of Meghalaya and of the Union territories of Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi inaugurated the state of Meghalaya on 21st January 1972 at the Polo Ground, Shillong, amidst a large gathering of people of the new state. This happy occasion was the culmination of a People's Hill State movement and the commencement of another chapter in the history of the state. My conclusion: as Meghalaya prepares to celebrate its 50th foundation, we recall the role of her leaders and many who participated in the Hill State movement. They came from a cross-section of society, including the young and the elderly. With no Hill State, no rest, as they refrain. With songs and banners, they held forth in support of what they believed was their right. The role of the general populace in this movement, in what culminated with statehood, requires to be recalled. Memory is short. There are many who participated, can be interviewed, and records taken of their participation in the movement. A gallery of the statehood movement could be a befitting memorial to this significant chapter of history. Kublai.
Now I invite Professor G. Singhaya, Pro Vice Chancellor, Nehru Tura Campus, to propose a vote of thanks.
Professor David Shimleji, who is the former chairperson, UPSC, and former Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University, Itanagar, and a great historian of our country, Srimati Agatha K. Sangma, who is Honorable Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha, Thura, Sri James P.K. Sangma, who is Honorable Cabinet Minister for Food Supplies and Consumer Affairs, Srimati Sarodini K. Sangma, wife of our great leader P.A. Sangma, and chairperson P.A. Sangma Foundation, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, Professor S.K. Srivastava, our district administration, DC Ram Singh ji, other officials and members of civil society, members of Doordarshan, All India Radio, and members of Nehu fraternity. So with this, I sincerely thank each and every one of you who have involved and participated in this fourth memorial lecture today. I thank one and all, ladies and Mithela, thank you, namaskar, Jai Hind.
Pagkateng sa kasket, kaday, ubriw ba